EDJ, welcome back to the Papa Shro Knows podcast every single time. Shout out to Eric's dog, and I can't remember the name.
I think she, I have my headphones in, but I think she just senses your timing. It's almost perfect.
Every time
to where
it is.
every time.
Shout out to her.
Yeah. Yeah, how's it going, buddy? A lot of wild sports events over the past weekend.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to get into. Haven't gotten my chance to take my dick in Kansas yet, so that would be a fun little segment here that we'll get into in a while. Talk about the Chiefs game and what we saw, what we liked, what we didn't like. Obviously, you've talked about that in depth, but we'll talk about that a little more. And then just go into the Eagles game and a bunch of other fun stuff here. But before we start, I just wanted to make this statement very quickly. Obviously, what we saw today was extremely senseless. It seems to be happening a lot in this country with a lot of different things. So the bottom line is, no matter where you stand, just be kind to each other. That's all. That's all I have to say. Now let's move on to something fun. Where should we start, Papa Show?
Let me get your initial takes on Brazil. Is what I want to get into first. What did you think? What were the causes for concern? Did you see anything positive? What did you like? Just your initial takeaways from Friday night in Brazil.
In the second half, I thought the offense played really good. It looked dreadful in the first half, and it looked like we were basically in the same rut we had been all year last year. And it kind of felt like, well, here we go again. But it seemed like they made adjustments in the second half that they weren't making at all last year. So that was a big positive, I would say. Seeing Mahomes, make adjustments in the second half, seeing them have confidence in themselves in the second half. The biggest takeaway was if the defense learns how to stop a 3rd and 15 instead of giving up 18 yards, probably a good chance the Chiefs win that game. I mean, do you really think Patrick Mahomes is going to lose a game with 90 seconds left and I think they still had 2 timeouts? I mean, probably not. So, at the end of the day, yes, it was the Chiefs' luck that ran out this time, but it's a divisional rival in a foreign country. That game, like I said, I think before the season started, that game has trap written all over it. It was just a bad game. Defensively, that's pretty scary. We have to figure that out. The corners there's just not a lot there. The secondary looked pretty lackluster. Justin Herbert had the best game of his career against us in general, maybe ever. There was a lot of things that we have to work on moving forward, but is there a complete just lack of hope? No. It's week 1 of the year against a divisional rival. Is there concern about the defense? Yes. Yes, there is. Very much so. I don't know. I mean, we got to the quarterback, but it just seemed like, again, that same problem last year. If it's not a designed blitz, it's not happening. So that's another huge takeaway that I thought too.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I think from what I'm getting out of you kind of feel the same way I do, that the defense is the problem child right now, at least from what we saw on Friday night. The offense, we did get to see, kind of settle down, and in the second half, I thought, I don't know, I think there's a glimpse, the film breakdown I put out yesterday, I feel like there is a bit of a glimpse of hope in that offense. Obviously, Mahomes has trust in Tyquan Thornton. He threw it his way, 20-plus yards 3 different times in the game. They did complete one, and then the Hollywood play at the end of the game. So I do think that there's a big possibility that this team maybe figures out the deep ball this year finally in 2025. They got a guy that can track it down. Mahomes overthrew him a couple of times. I know there was some other ones where he was open, there's pressure. I didn't think the offensive line was that bad. There were some moments, obviously. Honestly, the Hollywood Brown play, Kingsley Sumatai got blown up on one step. Khalil Mack rushing Pat that kind of aided the play. Mahomes was forced to roll out immediately. He did. Hollywood sneaks past the defense, and you get I think it was 49-yard completion on that play late in the game. But I do agree with you. I think that, Mahomes had a shot to win that game, and that's not going to happen every week. I mean, the Chargers really just hung on at the end. They did a great job on the 2-point conversion, not letting the Chiefs convert. And what else was I going to say? There was another. Oh, the Hollywood drop. If he doesn't drop that ball, they come away with points right there, more than likely. So I don't know. The Chiefs, I think, made the best offensively out of a bad situation. Week 1, division games are weird. I mean, I feel like I've said that for years. Division games are always weird, and it was in Brazil on top of that. So I don't know. There was a lot of things, but I do think the defensive side is a little bit more of a concern. Like you said, secondary did not look good. It felt like every 3rd and long, the Chargers were able to get something on. The Chiefs were, like you said, it was on design blitzes where they got pressure. Other than that, the Chiefs didn't get pressure. That is what concerns me. I heard Seth Kaiser talking about that on the radio on 810 as well, that is really the most concerning thing. You pay Karlaftis over the offseason. Look, it's one game too. So, and I know that's kind of the sentiment you were kind of getting at too, of like, obviously it's week 1, the Chiefs are 0-1. The world is on fire. Everything's burning, right? The dynasty is over. Patrick Mahomes can't do it anymore, which, if that's your take, you didn't watch the game, and that's all right. We understand a lot of people don't watch games. That was really loudly said by a lot of people the other night when, they all lost their minds about Patrick Mahomes lowering his shoulder after getting lit up a couple of times running. Everybody was upset. I made a short on it, or a reel, that just showcase a couple of the tweets of people losing their minds over it. But they obviously didn't watch the game, because if you wanted to see Patrick Mahomes get blown up near the sideline, there was that 8 plays prior. But you wouldn't know that if you didn't watch the whole game. Anyways, let me get off my soapbox. But so I feel you on that. The defense is concerning. We'll see moving forward. I mean, Spags always has at least a middle of the road defense. We saw the Chiefs win a Super Bowl without a great defense in 2019. Yeah. So I don't know. Let's get a few weeks in, and maybe I'll be concerned around December if it looks really bad.
No, I agree with you. And I think Spagnuolo has a great track record of building defenses throughout the year. And this is still, if you keep this in mind, it's still a very relatively young defense. It has a lot of young pieces. The defensive line is probably the oldest part of it. But outside of that, you have the linebacker core, the secondary. It's all 2nd year, 3rd year, some 1st year players. So it's not a veteran-led defense by any stretch of the imagination. Outside, like I said, outside of Chris Jones and defensive line, that's pretty much it. So, there's a lot of room for improvement. But like you said, and that's what made me nervous about this week, or last week rather, was divisional opponent in a foreign country. It didn't smell right, and that Absolutely. Just happens. But how about, this is kind of a brag, but how about that throw from Mahomes where I don't even know how in the world he got it to? I can't remember who it was to. Falling forward, getting wrapped up and taken down, and somehow getting the ball out of his hand to Hollywood Brown for a first down. We've seen him do stuff like that before, but I've had a couple people tell me that's the most impressive thing that I've ever seen him do. I don't know if you feel that way, but I don't know if it's one, but it's right up there.
I don't know, man. I saw a lot of people on the internet saying that wasn't very impressive. It was only 4 yards. I saw a lot of that. You're impressed by that? Yes, it was absolutely impressive. And by the way, it was a 3rd and 7. So I don't know how it only traveled 4 yards, but when it went for a first down. Either way, yes, it was very impressive. It was vintage Mahomes, if you will. Let's take it Michael Cole vintage. And Patrick Mahomes there. We saw it, of course, in the Super Bowl. They marketed a whole Madden off of that throw. Did they not? I mean, it's impressive. It's okay to say it's impressive, guys. But no, I absolutely agree with you. I thought it was absolutely impressive. So before we move on to this upcoming weekend, were there any other takeaways around the league outside of the Chiefs game? Sunday or Thursday night even with the Cowboys and the Eagles, but any other big takeaways from this weekend?
Well, I'll tell you, we'll start with convenience since we will be talking about Chiefs Eagles here before too long. Again, those divisional games are weird, and it's one of the biggest rivalries in the NFL, Eagles Cowboys. Um, but the Eagles didn't look that great. If you watch that game, I didn't really, if you look at Hurts and Brown, or I'm sorry, not Hurts and Brown, Smith and Brown, they were nowhere to be seen. And the Cowboys did a great job of taking both of them away. Barkley had had a decent game, but it, again, you have to keep in mind Sirianni was out the door, 6 or 7 weeks into the year before they turned it around. So, to say, oh, well, this Eagles team was just so dominant, been dominant all year, not necessarily. We're talking about a team that got hot, brought in Vic Fangio, who's glorified their defense, made them a completely different animal, and they won the Super Bowl. That happens sometimes. But, if we're going to talk about coaching and talk about how, amazing this Eagles team is, keep in mind Sirianni was not going to be there. So, I mean, I don't think the Eagles are this world-beating team. They have a great pass rush when they choose not to spit on people. But I mean, other than that, it's they were fine. But I was more impressed with the Cowboys. Getting rid of
What
Micah
did you?
Parsons and
My bad to cut you off, but just what
right.
you mentioned. What did you think about the suspension for? Man, why can I not think of the defensive tackle's name now?
Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter. Thank you. What did you think about the suspension? Because they're going to say that he served it week 1.
Shocker. He's not wearing red. I mean, it's whatever. I mean, I think the only way is you saw different camera angles. It looked like Dak spit too, so there could be potential to where oh well, Dak did it first. Da 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 da. Maybe I don't know, but
Dak didn't
it's
spit
senseless
on
either
Jalen
way.
Carter, though.
Correct. Yes.
I don't
Correct.
think he
Yes.
was really
Correct.
even spitting at
Yeah.
him, and that's my take. I mean, I could be wrong, but it did look like
Right.
Dak was just kind of spitting, like athletes spit. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It's stupid. And we've talked about this last time. Where's the line for the NFL and suspensions? Where are you putting your priorities of suspensions? I understand spitting on someone may not be a 7-game suspension, but him not playing when a game he's already going to play is good enough. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Um, it just seems kind of lackluster, But moving back towards the Cowboys, I thought they played fine. A lot of people say that's one of the best games Dak's ever played. I don't know about all that, but it looked good. And if CeeDee Lamb could catch the ball, Cowboys might win that game. So I didn't see a lot of terribleness by the Cowboys, and their defense looked fine. Without Micah Parsons, it didn't look terrible. So I think the Cowboys are an interesting team to watch this year. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but something to watch. Moving forward, and how about that Bills Ravens game? Yeah, that was phenomenal. Lamar Jackson loses again. Um, for once, I like to put this on Lamar. I can't, well, I can, but what was Harbaugh doing? Why are you throwing the ball when you're up with like 2 minutes? What are you doing?
I
Just
think the
run the
stat
ball.
was that Harbaugh's lost 4 games since 2022 with a 15-point lead or more.
I didn't get it. It was mind-boggling to me. You have a massive threat in the backfield with Lamar Jackson, another massive threat in the backfield with Derrick Henry. But are you trying to prove a point? It seems like Harbaugh gets in his way too many times because he wants to prove a point. It's like, well, we know who you guys are, so just do it, but it just seems like every time the Ravens have a chance to win the game, like you said, 4 times he's lost a 15-point lead game. Just run the ball. Run the ball with one of the most dominant running backs in the history of the league, and just hand it to him. You gave that game away, and yes, Lamar missed throws, and I enjoyed that, but you gave the game away, and you gave it to a guy who does the exact same thing, but somehow has more composure than your guy to finish off your team. He's done it 2 times in a row now. So I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe that was part of it. Maybe that was, well, the Bills beat us last year in a dramatic fashion. We're going to show them, but you blew it again. I don't. It was mind-boggling to me. A great game, but it was very confusing again.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I can't believe that they kind of threw that game away there at the end. I mean, to play devil's advocate, I mean, it was Derrick Henry that fumbled the ball. They were running the ball to a point. I mean, they collapsed, and I think it's on coaching. I'm not trying to say I want to put it on Derrick Henry, but hey, man, Lamar may have missed a couple throws, but he's 14 for 19, 209 yards. I mean, he still has shown that he is the most efficient quarterback in the league throwing the ball right now. I mean, Josh Allen was absolutely great. Don't get me wrong. Although he really wanted to turn the ball over, couldn't quite get the job done. Threw it in the hands of a couple of Ravens at a couple of times, but it was a great game nonetheless. Like, not take away from anything that either of those guys did. But I did watch Sunday night, and I saw where Nick Wright kind of had the same take, but immediately Sunday night I thought, oh, okay, it's still the Bills and the Ravens. Like, what do I need to be worried about? I mean, these are still the same two teams that the Chiefs beat every single January, and then also the Bungles with their 7 yards in the second half against the Cleveland Browns that gave the game to them. I mean, I don't think there's a team in the AFC that impressed me on Sunday that made me worried necessarily for the Chiefs.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent. Again, I just didn't see a big disparager between Chiefs and everybody else. It's just, and that's what you kind of saw last year. There's not a big gap between everybody because the Chiefs weren't as dominant. I mean, they had a great record, but it wasn't domination every single week. So it's not necessarily a huge gap between everybody, but there's not enough to move the needle to decide a new number one. I just don't think there is. And you saw the Bills Ravens game last night or Sunday night rather. And to them, that's a huge win for both of them. But that's another day of the office for us. It just there's two different levels of games, and you could tell both those teams wanted that one really bad, and we enjoy beating the Bills and Ravens too. But for some reason or another, I think it becomes almost over competition, for everyone else in the league to, okay, well, maybe down the line this will beat the Chiefs, or maybe down the line this will beat the Chiefs, or so much. Especially if you're the Bills, Ravens, and Bengals. It just seems like you're playing teams to beat or play us, or I don't know. It's
Who's going to be number
there's just
two?
not a lot there. There you go. Yeah, who's going to be number two?
Yeah,
Is what you're playing for.
boys.
And maybe down the line, maybe this year, who knows? The Bills or Ravens or Bengals get one. It happened. The Bengals got one.
Yeah.
So it happens. But am I worried that Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson is going to steal one from us? No, I'm just not.
Speaking of other AFC teams, how about those Dolphins coming out flat on their face against the Indianapolis Colts?
Well, talk about an implosion. I mean, that's your definition of one right there. I mean, they got handed a very unknown Colts team with Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones looked like, Jaden Daniels. I mean, he looked phenomenal. The Colts rolled them. I think it was 33-8, something like that.
Yeah, I think 33-10 maybe ended up being the final
something
score.
like that. Somewhere in between there.
Yeah, it was bad. There was Tua had 3 turnovers in the first half, 2 picks and a fumble.
And listen, Tua has had a lot of dramatic injuries. And that's not disparaging his play, but why are you bringing him back? Why are you forcing him to play the quarterback position when he's nearly died twice? I'm not, just we've seen it. I mean, he was been extremely injured, in his head area. It's been extreme injuries. So I don't know. Like, and his hip, I just bringing this guy back and making him play quarterback for a team that's not very good anyway. It just seems unfair to him, and it just seems unfair to your franchise because now you guys are potentially going to lose Tyreek. Maybe we'll see. And whoever else wants to head out, but the Dolphins are in a real hard position. I don't know. I think we're going to see a complete, reset for them next year, if not halfway through the year. I think McDaniel will probably be gone. I think we'll see a completely different Dolphins coaching staff by the end of this year, if not mid-season,
Yeah, I
for
think you
sure. I
gotta.
mean, that was just bad.
Yeah, I think you gotta upend everything there. So speaking of which, the Chiefs are down a receiver. Well, the Chiefs are down 1, 2, 3 receivers right now. In Rashee Rice due to suspension. Who else do we have? Xavier Worthy, who went down in the third play of the game on Friday night, and then Jalen Royals, who Andy confirmed yesterday he would not be back for this game too against the Eagles. So I don't see Jalen Royals making much of an impact on this team at all this season. Maybe down the line in December, maybe late, not October, November. I don't know why I couldn't think of November, but maybe at some point. But I don't see much of an impact for Jalen Royals to be had at this point, already dealing with injuries, and, we'll see. The word on the street is that Tyreek Hill could possibly be available to come back to Kansas City. What are your thoughts on that, EDJ?
I'm good, and I say that begrudgingly because we definitely need another receiver. Um, but it just seems like we've had obviously leaps and bounds of success without Tyreek. If not more so. I think Tyreek was a fantastic player and a good starting point for Patrick's career. But at the end of the day, if you look at Tyreek and you look at what he does on the field and off the field, if you're trying to build a younger team with a younger receiver core, he doesn't really fit. And he's not going to fit that mold that you're trying to build there, especially with Rasheed, especially with Hollywood Brown, especially with Xavier Worthy. You basically have Tyreek and Xavier Worthy. He's just got to develop. So I mean, all those pieces are there already. Yes, it would be nice to have him back, but you have to keep in mind that Tyreek is a persona. He is his own, whatever you want to call, entity. So there's a lot of baggage you get with Tyreek. Some good, some not so good, and maybe the Chiefs don't really want that right now. They have enough already to deal with. And adding a guy like Tyreek, as great as he is, I just don't foresee them adding that. I've heard the Steelers are interested in him too. That would be interesting, but would it be a great addition? Yes. But do they necessarily need it to be successful? No, I don't think they do. Do I want it for the sake of the future of the team to give up stock to get Tyreek? No, I don't. I don't know about you, but that just seems
What?
like too much stock to give up to a guy that we've seen.
Yeah, but how much stock do you think they'd have to give up? I mean, if you could get Tyreek on it for a 4th-round pick, maybe some type of 4th-round pick swap here or there. I mean, I do understand where you're coming from, and I don't think that Tyreek would
Right.
necessarily be an every down receiver if he does come back to Kansas City. I think he's a guy that you can mix in, and how much juice does he have left in the tank? I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, you're talking about a speedy wide receiver that is only getting older, and I really didn't see him at all on Sunday, from what I remember. I mean, I was watching Red Zone, so I'm not gonna act like I sat there and watched the whole game, but I don't know, man. I think Tyreek would be maybe a guy instead of Brownlee that you see rotated in, or maybe in some Hollywood spots. Maybe keep him a little bit fresher. I think that they could use him. Obviously, the Dolphins are going to have to take a big chunk of that money. And they're going to have to eat that for the Chiefs to take a deal like that. I think anybody they're going to trade him to, they're going to have to eat some cap. from the Tyreek contract. I think there's an out after this year. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that it's that bad of an idea if, I don't know, you can handle it properly. And if anybody can handle it properly, I think it's the Chiefs. I think that Andy Reid is, a very good coach. He's very smart about how he works with his players. And I think the Chiefs could handle it. But, it is kind of a seesaw kind of deal, right? Of you're going to get production out of it, but how much production? You got 6 games without Rashee Rice. Once he comes back, I think a lot of this is fixed a little bit. Whether Worthy is healthy or not. I think you add Rashee Rice, and if everybody else stays healthy, I'm going to knock on wood over here, because as long as everybody else stays healthy, I think they'll be all right once Rashee gets back. But until then, I mean, I don't know. We still don't know about Xavier Worthy. He's day-to-day. Andy ruled out any type of IR or anything like that. So I do think that that's a little bit hopeful, but also maybe wishful thinking.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I don't think Worthy has to rush back and play on Sunday. I think we'll be fine for 1 week without him. It'll suck, but I think we'll be fine. I, I do agree with you on that point. I think, the Chiefs could get him for a cheaper deal because of the contract that they'll have to eat. And by that, I mean the Dolphins. So, a lot of teams, when they have a big contract and they're trying to get rid of a guy, they have to take a lower deal because he's so expensive. So we could get him for a better deal than, a second round. It could be a lot less than that. But again, and I agree, Andy brought in Tyreek for a reason. He saw potential in him, and that whole organization saw potential in him and took a chance on him, and he did fine here. He did great here. But there's always a concern of bringing guys back, and they're just not the same. And like you said, and they're always older. It's not like they're 26 again. I forget how old Tyreek is now, but they're not younger, and it's just not the same. And maybe he would be an amazing, the old Tyreek Hill of old, but do you really take that risk at this point? I think with the Chiefs locker room and the receiver room and what they have, yes, they could bring him back for 6 games, and like you said, but I agree with you. If once Rashee Rice gets back, I think a lot of this is fixed, and we forget about, we could have had Tyreek. Yeah, we could have, but at the end of the day, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I do kind of agree with you. I mean, they've figured it out the last few years without Tyreek Hill. I think they can continue to figure it out. Just to be noted, I was looking Tyreek up for his age. 31 is what he is. And reportedly from an insider trade, calls have been made, has been linked to the Chiefs. The Dolphins have rejected trade calls for Tyreek Hill. We'll see how that goes over the next few weeks. Obviously, it's just week 1. But I don't think Tyreek wants to be there anymore. I mean, he sold as much at the end of last season. He, said, I'm not coming back. He's back. He was very frustrated on the sideline. I don't know. We'll see. Let us know in the comments below what you guys think about the Tyreek Hill situation. It seems to be pretty polarizing amongst Chiefs fans and here on this podcast as well. I'm for it. Eric is against it. But, I mean, I'm kind of either or on it, really. I mean, if it happens, it happens, awesome. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like I said, I think that you are right. They'll end up figuring it out. So, moving forward, what you talked about a little bit earlier is something that I thought about during the game of if the Dallas Cowboys spied Jalen Hurts, they win that ball game. I mean, Jalen Hurts made so many plays with his legs in that game Thursday night that makes me agree with you that, look, the Philadelphia Eagles were world beaters at the end of last season. Absolutely. That Super Bowl showed it. They fought through adversity in the Rams game. They overcame everything. They overcame the new kids on the block as well and the Commanders. So they went through the playoffs and they were these world beaters, right? This is 2025. It's a new season. A whole nother training camp. A little bit different of a team. I think they stayed the same, relatively same, for the most part. I think they got rid of some older pieces, but I don't. And it's an early season match. This team is not going to be the same team that they were in February of last year. It's just not how it works. And we know that better than I think anyone else as Chiefs fans that have watched this year over year and watched the team go to the Super Bowl and then start out the year rough, or whatever it may be, and have to right the ship through the year. So I think this is a very good chance at getting one back for the Chiefs. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be close. But yeah, if the Cowboys put a spy on Jalen Hurts, they win that game. I 100% believe that. So many times where they just got decimated by Jalen Hurts runs. The Chiefs have proved they are pretty good against the run. Now the pass game, they got to figure out how to get pressure. Because that defense behind them, I don't think that is going to hold up if they can't get pressure. They got to figure something out or get everybody aligned. E that was on the show a couple weeks ago, we were texting about it, and he was saying, Tyrann Mathieu doing the drum on Sunday night. Can he go out there, just throw a jersey his way and let him go out there and line the guys up at least? Like, he ain't even got to get out there. Just, hey, go out there and make sure everybody's aligned correctly, because there were some weird things I caught on film here and there where, like, at one point, I don't have to get into the specifics, but there was some weird stuff the way they lined up, I thought. But I don't know, man. This weekend, I think, is obviously a revenge game from the Super Bowl. These guys want to win this game, and I think Mahomes will figure it out. But it's going to be a good game. What are your thoughts on Sunday, EDJ?
Well, yeah, you nailed it on the head, and I've talked about this a countless amount of times. The defensive assignments last year were horrendous. They got so confused all the time in the backfield. It was almost nauseating where everyone was just go where you're supposed to go. And clearly that's still a problem. So, I agree with you. That's something you can't hold on to the rest of the year. You're going to get smoked. It's just going to happen. Yeah, well, I mean, I think that Micah Parsons trade showed the biggest glaring miss of the Cowboys was I think Micah Parsons would have been that guy. But they don't have him anymore, and that was why Jalen Hurts doesn't run well. I think the Chiefs have a couple guys they can use. You've mentioned Chanel to me. Drew Tranquill could be another guy. And not necessarily Bolton. Bolton isn't a spy type. So, if Tranquill or Chanel, or I'm trying to think of another linebacker, those would be the two main ones that you would use for something like that. I think the Chiefs have the ability. Now, obviously, they didn't the other night against Justin Herbert, who, you all saw it. But, they definitely need to run a different defense. And they have to be worried about Brown and Smith, because those two guys, when they get free, it's a long night. So, the Chiefs just have to figure it out. I think they will. And like you said, this is a big, fueled, revenge game. It's at Arrowhead. It's first Arrowhead game of the year. It's going to be loud.
I will do my part on Sunday.
There you go. But defense, it's got to be a defensive fix. It's got to get fixed defensively. Another thing that's got to be fixed is that run game for the Chiefs. They just got to figure that out.
Real quick before you move on to the offense, one thing that I saw a lot on film that just felt off, that everybody just kind of seemed lackadaisical. Everybody just laid back and let a lot of soft zones, a lot of, letting guys get way too far away from them. And, that's got to change, especially with a physical team like Philly. And maybe that does change this weekend. I mean, I'm all for it. So we only saw one game. And, knowing how the Chiefs are, knowing how, which we've talked about this on the podcast, it is frustrating a little bit sometimes that it feels like the regular season has become a dress rehearsal for the postseason. But, then you get games like this where it's like everybody's just like 5 yards, back on wherever their zone is, and then pounces as soon as the catch is made. And, you mentioned the 3rd and 15, the 3rd and long, every time it seemed like everybody was just on their back, on their heels, on their back foot, like there was no sense of urgency is what I'm trying to say on the defense at any point in the game. And really the point in the game with the scramble that Jalen Hurts won the game, that's on Chris Jones. Chris Jones gives up that rushing lane trying to go inside and get the sack. Totally get it. I totally get it. But again, you're playing outside your means to try to make up for what the other 59 minutes of that game was. But, moving on to the offense, like you said, the running game. I will say, you say they need to fix the running game. I think they need to use the running game. Pacheco ran 5 yards per carry on Friday night. You know how many times he ran the ball? 5 times. 5 rushes from Isaiah Pacheco at 5 yards per carry. The game was never out of hand to where they had to abandon the run. And now, Kareem Hunt, I can't remember what the exact stat was, but it was not as good. He also got 5 carries. No Brashard Smith. No Brashard Smith targets is what I'd really like to see out of Brashard Smith more than him actually running the ball. But, yeah, they need to use the game. I'm going to let you continue on your take on the run game, though.
Well, yeah, you use the correct word there. They need to use it, because they just don't, And in a game where, like you said, it wasn't necessarily a blowout by any stretch of the imagination, just use what you have. And that's been Andy's problem ever since he got here, and even when we had LaShawn McCoy and his whole career, yes. But, even here when we had LaShawn McCoy, even, with all those other guys that, been great running backs, it just, he doesn't use it, and at some point, but there are times when he uses it and by God, does it work great. And when he uses it and it works great, the team's phenomenal. But then the next week he comes out and he acts like he has no idea what you're talking about. So it's just like, so I don't know.
And some of their running schemes are absolutely terrific. I love the pitch plays from the shotgun, the counters they like to run, where they really get deep into the counter and then go the other way. I do really love some of the schemes that they run. But you're absolutely right.
Well, yeah, and I mean, if you look at, I think it was a 4th and 2 in the playoffs a year or two ago, where they ran, they had 2 guys in the field behind Patrick. If you remember what I'm talking about, it was I can't remember if it was a fake to the left and everyone went left and ended up going right. I can't remember who the running back was. But, Andy draws up phenomenal, run schemes. They're great. Andy draws up phenomenal schemes.
Full house action we got on Friday night.
That too. Yeah. Andy draws up great schemes. No one's questioning Andy's scheme making. The question is, use it. I guess that's not a question, but use it. Just, and that's fixing the Chiefs' run game, is using it. A lot of people are down on Pacheco right now, but we haven't used him. He had that leg, severe leg injury that it's tough to come back from as a running back. He's got to get over that and, come into the new year. And you, like you said, he ran the ball 5 times, had 5 yards to carry, but ran the ball 5 times. So we got to get back to running the ball. And I think that's the other part of the Chiefs' problem too, is that we don't really have clock control. It's, we'll throw the ball on the field. That's great and all, but there's no clock management in that. And that's been another part of Andy's career that's struggled. His clock management's gotten a hell of a lot better.
Just about to say that.
But that's the other part of Andy's Achilles heel. He's not the best clock manager, and he doesn't run the ball. And that's 2 big things that you have to have as an NFL coach that Andy's never had. He's gotten away with it, but at some point it's going to come back and bite you. For Sunday night, the Eagles defense is very, very physical. They're very big, and they're fast too. So, I mean, it's going to be a challenge. I think Patrick looked great, in the game, especially in the second half. He looks more confident. I said that in the last game of the preseason with the Bears. He looks more confident. He looks a little more relaxed. Travis looks a little stressed out. That's neither here nor there. John Taylor, man, listen. We gave you a lot of praise on this podcast by giving you a thumbs up. Don't make us look stupid. I mean, come on, dude. I mean, listen, if the ball's not snapped yet, don't move. Just don't move. You mean, what was it, 2 times Friday night?
I think it was 3 times. That, honestly, I mean, how many times they called 74 on a penalty, which most penalized right tackle in all of football.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Like from the start of the game, I think the first penalty I said at some point that I think he gets too much flack. I know that he, but by the end of the night, I was like, okay, Jalen Moore's got to come in at right tackle at some point. You gotta just move on. I mean, and I don't think that me and you kind of talked about this, but I don't think anyone expected that the Chiefs' right side or right tackle would be the main issue with a rookie left tackle and a second-year left guard that's moving from left tackle. Because I don't think that either one looked very bad. And Patrick gave him a little bit of praise yesterday in the press conference.
No, I thought they looked fine. But the weird thing was it was the right side, like you said, and we have one of the best right guards in football, and Trey Smith is not the best right guard in football, and a right tackle,
I will
so
say
it's
though, Trey Smith did have the highest pass blocking PFF grade out of any of the offensive linemen. So,
well, there you go. But so when you have a leak, you have a leak. And it's almost impossible to patch that. So there are a lot of issues. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. There are a few issues for the Chiefs, but the problem is the issues are glaring, and the issues are a big part of the reason they're going to have success this year.
agreed.
The secondary needs to be buttoned up. Somebody else has got to play right tackle. And maybe it'll be in the next 3 weeks, but we know how much of a loyalist Andy is. So we'll just close our eyes and cross our fingers, and hopefully he gets moved at some point. But like you told me in text the other day, I doubt it.
Yeah, dude, I highly doubt it, and maybe it'll come together. I mean, Jawan Taylor has had some rough regular seasons, but he has been solid in the postseason. So I will stand by giving him that. But I mean, at some point, enough might have to be enough. Cost you enough ball games. I mean, you got to move on from it and figure it out. I will say Patrick Mahomes, like you said, had an amazing second half. First half was a little shaky, missed a couple of deep balls that was on him, but I just like the fact that he's throwing them, honestly, and we haven't seen it in years, hardly. So I understand maybe the timing's a little rusty when you ain't been throwing the deep ball. But Patrick Mahomes was also still the third best quarterback in the league in points added for his value versus an average starter, plus 2.3. Above him was only Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. So still had a really good game, and his adjusted completion percentage was like 74%, I think. Or 75 maybe. I think he was he was at 73%, or he was at 63%, excuse me, adjusted for the drops that he had. It was 74%, I believe. It was 11% higher. This weekend, Sunday, what's your prediction? How do you see this game going? What kind of ball game you think this is going to be on Sunday?
I think this will be a game of two different halves. I think in the first half we're going to see probably a team that comes out either super hot, takes the revenge game seriously, starts throwing haymakers and out jabs right away, and they could very well do that. My concern is when teams make adjustments in the second half, and that was kind of our problem last year too. Is maybe not, I shouldn't say that. And the first half was our problem last year defensively. It just kind of seemed like, well, everyone can move the ball. Look at what Abel O'Connell did. There's a lot of different pieces that come into making this game, but my concern in this is we're going to bite too much on Jalen potentially running the ball, and that's going to leave AJ and Devontae Smith wide open. The Chiefs bite. They bite a lot. Too much sometimes. So that's my concern. As terms of a game, I think the Chiefs can win this game. I think at the end of the day, they have a better team. I think the Eagles have a great team, but I think the Chiefs have pieces. I think it'll be close. I think we'll have to, hold our breath for 4 quarters as usual. But I'm going to give it a field goal win. I don't know It's the norm, but I think the Chiefs will have the ball last with the lead. I don't think it'll be, Patrick needs to drive to win. I think the Eagles run out of time. Um, I think the Chiefs will have a better hold on this game than they did week one. I just don't know how they'll get there, but I think the Chiefs will have enough stronger to win at the end. Probably a 3-point advantage, um, but it'll be fun. I don't know, who the star is yet. I don't know who they potentially could be, but I feel like a big game from Patrick is coming. I just feel like he's going to have a night. Um, I know Xavier Worthy's out. I know we don't have Rashee Rice, but that just kind of seems, to be Patrick's design. Oh, I don't have this guy. I don't have this guy. Well, watch this. So I think Patrick will use the motivation. I think we'll see one of the best games we've seen in a long time for Patrick.
Yeah, we saw 6 carries for 57 yards. He was the leading rusher for the Kansas City Chiefs with a touchdown on Friday night. Do you have a final score prediction for us?
Let's go 27-24.
Okay, I like it.
I feel like that's.
Go ahead.
I feel like that's close enough, but I don't feel like the offense is over 30 yet, so I'll do 27-24.
I'm gonna go a little bit different. I agree with you on how the score. I'm gonna say it's gonna go a little bit different. I think the Chiefs. I think Mahomes does have to drive down the field, gets in field goal range. Chiefs win 34-31. Which is a little, like you said, you don't know if the offense is ready to score 30 points with what we saw. I think that they hit a couple of those that they missed last week. I do think that they're able to, and I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I might sound crazy just for what we saw in the last 2 games the Chiefs have played, going back to the Super Bowl. Travis Kelce's the player of the game. I think Mahomes has a big game, but I think Kelce has a vintage, like 5 to 7 catches for, we'll say 60 yards and a touchdown in there. Maybe a couple. I'll say 1 touchdown. They get in the red zone, and I'll say maybe Mahomes hits a couple deep balls for touchdowns. I don't think the defense gets fixed. I think that they figure it out through the game. But I do think that you're right. I think that, with some of the youth, I think the Chiefs do bite a little bit on certain things. We saw it with some of the play action that the Chargers ran. Also, that offense is pretty good. I mean, it's well put together, I would say, that Chargers offense. They were smart at, passing on rundowns. They didn't run the ball a ton. The Chiefs were pretty good against the run, but I think that's what really threw them off is the Chargers said, we're just going to go out here and air it out. And if we can't air it out, have enough time in the pocket, and Herbert will find something to happen. He ran a lot as well, just like Mahomes. So looking at that, I want to look at that stat real quick. What was Herbert's line on the ground? 7 carries, 32 yards. It felt like way more than 32 yards, but that last one really put it on there. I guess they did run the ball a little bit more than I remember. 15 for 48 was Omari and Hampton, but I think they'll do all right against Barkley. I think Barkley has a better game than he had in the Super Bowl just because the Chiefs were sold out for the Barkley run. But I do think that Chiefs end up getting the win. We'll go 34-31 from Papa Schro over here.
No, yeah, I agree. And it's funny, because the Chargers, everyone talks about, oh, well, it's hardball. They'll just run the ball down your throat and da-da-da-da-da. The Chiefs' run defense, you talked about this at the very beginning, it looks great. It looks like they have a lot of pieces there that can really stop the run. That seems to bode well against Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. But, you just have to hope that those spies work well. You just have to hope that the secondary holds up enough. Did Turk McDuffie have any targets for that Chargers game?
Yes, I believe, I want to say he was targeted 7 times, allowed 4 receptions. I could be wrong. Let me get back to you in just a second. Jalen Watson had a hell of a game, though, too.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember because, and see, that's the thing, too. His teams are going to kind of lean more towards his side because they know that there's not a lot of help behind him. I've talked about this. But there's not a lot of help behind him. So if he's out there and you're wearing him out in the play, he's gonna get gassed. So it just that makes me nervous. But
Yeah,
I agree with
McDuffie
you. I
allowed
think
4
it'll be fun.
catches off of 7 targets for a grand total of 29 yards.
Man, he's so good.
He really
And,
is.
and and that's what I hate reading Twitter and reading people. Oh, well, he's not all that. He's not all that. Yeah, the ball thrown at him 7 times, allowed 4 of them for under 30 yards. You know how ridiculous that is. I mean, that's and 0 touchdowns, obviously. So it's just he brings back that old school coverage corner. They're not going to get.
Okay, I will say he did allow a touchdown.
Go ahead.
Wasn't all the way his
Oh
fault.
well.
He fell down on the play, but that was one of the early ones.
Okay.
I can't remember if that was it was like a crosser where he got tripped up.
Oh,
On his
that's
way.
right. That's
So
right. That's right.
that really, was what it was. So he gave up a
See,
touchdown.
well, I mean, if you watch the game enough, yes, statistically, but I mean, whatever. But but he just brings back that old school coverage corner. And I think a lot of people look towards the Jalen Ramseys, the Trayvon Diggs, the 9 picks a game guys. But that's not what the corner position was. It was you're not going to score on me, and good luck getting the ball. And that's what he brings back. And anyway, he's just a great corner. Chiefs need to pay him. Will they? I don't know, but they should. Speaking of getting paid, um, for Mizzou, how about Bo earning his transfer portal, whatever they paid him?
Big
Man, can he
time
throw the ball?
Bo. Yeah, boy, he had a
What was it?
hell of a
30
game.
for 39, 336 yards and 3 touchdowns, something like that. That's pretty close. Maybe a yard here or there, but I mean, just that's phenomenal. And I told you we haven't had volume like that since Gabbard or Mock. And Walk every occasionally, Walk through the ball a lot, but to have that volume of bounds and completion percentage is something we haven't seen maybe since Gabbard. Just that was a phenomenal performance. Um, Not necessarily how we both saw it starting, but what did you take away from that game? I know you talked about it the other day, but what was your main takeaway from that?
I'd say my main takeaway is the Tigers are right on pace to who they want to be. I think they got a quarterback that can run, he can throw. I mean, we saw he can throw on Saturday. They battled adversity. I think that this was a great, you know, preseason game essentially. Obviously it's college. You don't get preseason games, but you get Central Arkansas to get you tuned up for just. I think it's been said a lot over the last couple of weeks, but if you don't understand, I think everybody that's going to tune into the Pop Show Knows podcast knows what this rivalry game means. But there's some real hate there between Missouri and Kansas. This is a big time game, and for them to be down 21-6 at one point in the game and battle the second quarter of that game was one of the best quarters of football I've seen any team play in a while. Just the fact that I think at one point it was like 40 of 41 plays ran in the second quarter was by Mizzou's offense. 15-0. They pitched a shutout in the second quarter. From then on, that game was pretty much over. 21-6, I was worried. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little worried. But once the second quarter hit, I was never worried again. Even when Kansas was up, Brett Norfleet too. What a game! Him and Kevin Coleman Jr. But Brett Norfleet, man. Every time Mizzou needed to be bailed out on a 4th and short, Norfleet was there.
Yeah, Northfleet's a dog. He's a phenomenal tight end. And Kevin Coleman Jr. What a find by Drakowitz, to get him in the
Absolutely.
transfer portal. He's their leading receiver, as he should be. If you're going to go out and get a guy like that, make sure he gets the ball, and he is. But like we talked about, Missouri's receiver core is probably better this year than it was last year.
I agree.
And that's shown to be true. The run game was phenomenal, not just Bo, but everyone behind him was phenomenal. I think was it Jamal Roberts had the most yards, I believe. Um, for the
think you may be
night.
right.
Can't remember, but both of them had great games. Um, the defense, you gotta be careful.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
But it's a rivalry game. At the end of the day, they only allowed 10 points in the second half. Um, so it was an adjustment that they made. Um, but yeah, I agree with you, and I think we texted and during that game, and you said, "Man, I hope they don't blow this." I said, "But the biggest thing in college football is, then luckily it was college is all about emotion.
I was just about to
And
bring
you
that
go
up
out
because
there,
that was a perfect
yeah,
point that you made, and you were
hmm
absolutely correct because it was 21-6 at that point, and that was the point where I was feeling all right, a little bit worried. I was like, hey, I can't have them blow this after the Chiefs losing on Friday night and watch the Tigers lose to the Jayhawks on Saturday. They righted the ship, but yeah, you put it perfectly. I mean, it's all about emotion, and we saw the emotion of the game swinging back and forth, and by the second quarter, it didn't really feel like it swung back Kansas' way.
yeah, and it's just tough to really judge a college game until it's completely over, because all those games are never over until they're over, obviously. But you see it all the time, especially in rivalry games. I mean, look at the Iron Bowl that got Auburn to the national championship game that year. It took a missed field goal and a magical return for it to happen. Anything can happen in college football. It's just part of it. Um, the one thing I did really like, that Mizzou did is they seemed to not be committed to one thing over the other. They ran the ball, they threw the ball at a balanced amount. That kind of seemed to be a problem last year. They kind of seemed to make Brady Cook do too much at times. Um, Obviously, both threw the ball 39 times, but they ran the ball almost the same. I think it was pretty balanced at the end of the day. I could be wrong, but it seemed almost identical. So maybe Drakewitz has found they're more a balanced team than they were last year. And then 2 years ago when they had Cody Schrader, it was a Cody Schrader show. So it's looking good. And like we talked about, this is, and a lot of people have said on different podcasts, if Mizzou is going to make the playoffs, this is the year to do it. They have the schedule to do it.
Yes.
They have the offense to do it. They got to do it. And I said this: if they don't do it, maybe they look somewhere else. But this is the year to do it, and they just have to. I mean, this makes the most sense. They look good. They walk the walk, but can they talk the talk? And that seems to be Mizzou's problem. They look great, and then they fall off. They look great, and then they fall off. Obviously, they beat Ohio State 2 years ago. They beat Iowa last year. But now it's time to make that next leap. Get in the playoffs, beat somebody again, make that final four, final eight, whatever you have to do. But at least make it known that you're here to play. Hey, how about Matt Zollers, the true freshman getting a game? That was last week, but he's obviously the number two. So Mizzou has a plan. Mizzou has the future, but can Drinkowitz bring it to him? I hope so.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on the fact that you said this year is the year. 38 carries between Roberts and Hardy, so yeah, it was pretty even right there. 9 carries for Bo Perbula. I mean, how many of those? I'd have to go back and rewatch how many were designed runs or him taking off, but yeah, 38 design run plays to your running backs, 39 passes. I couldn't agree more. This is the year. I think that if you're going to make the playoffs, if you're Mizzou, this is definitely the year, and to continue to build that program because, like you said, I mean, they've had a couple of good bowl wins. They beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. I don't remember what bowl it was last year. They beat Iowa, but they also beat Iowa last year. This is the year to take that next step forward. You're absolutely right. So that goes into the next few games where I actually do really like the schedule that they've got coming up. You've got Saturday against the Ragin Cajuns of Louisiana. That is at Faroe, which we talked about how many home games they start off with. Then September 20th, that's the big one. That's the big test. Number 11, South Carolina comes to Columbia. Then you get September 27th. You've got UMass coming to town. It's UMass. I mean, I'm sure there'll be jokes just like there was about Ohio State playing. I forgot now who they even played, but then you've got Bama coming to Columbia. So South Carolina is and maybe by the time we get to the Bama game, Bama isn't Bama, you know? I mean, they already look like that in the FSU game. We'll see moving forward. But this next stretch, these next 4 games, obviously you got 2 games that should be a win very easily. You got a big game against South Carolina that's really going to show us, is this a playoff team or not? And then you've got the test of Bama of, okay, can you get over the hump? And now, you know, because you probably only got 1 game to lose through all of this to make the playoffs.
Yeah, 1 for sure. You know, and maybe they can get away with 2 losses, but I feel like they have to be in the SEC championship game to get a bid in the playoffs for that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they can beat Alabama. Alabama looks very beatable. You know, they lost to the Florida State team, who was absolutely dreadful last year. You know, so there's a lot of potential. You know, there's a lot of potential in this Mizzou team, in this lineup, in the schedule. South Carolina is a huge test. Their quarterback looks as good as advertised. You know, so I mean, I think South Carolina is a very sneaky national championship favorite. They look really good. But outside of that, you know, I don't see another team on their schedule that makes me nervous. Oklahoma looks a lot better, you know, but we talked about that. I feel like Oklahoma will probably be our first or second loss of the year. I think they're going to be really good too. So, you know, there's potentially 2 losses on there, but like you said, it's time to go. It's time to do what you're supposed to do and get the job done. So a lot of high hopes for Missouri. One final thing that I've been dreading to talk about, not dreading to talk about, but speaking of time to go, I believe it's time to say farewell to the Royals' chances this year, unfortunately. All those injuries have just seemed to caught up to them. You know, when your rotation shot, Bobby Witt had some back problems at a crucial time. You know, it just kind of seems like too little too late. Just too many injuries, not enough time. And I think they've lost only 1 pitcher in the rotation from the start of the year, and that's Walker, who I'm not giving enough credit for. Michael Walker's had a great year. But
well, that's something I heard
just too little.
being talked about on the radio today of just what team would overcome all of these injuries that the Royals have had to deal with.
Not very many. You know, it's hard to lose. Yeah, well, yeah. But it's hard to lose 4. It's hard to lose 4 pitchers out of your 5 for a rotation. You know, you lost Boo. You lost, you know, Reagans. You lost, you know, Lugo. I mean, you have to replace all these guys. Stephen Kulik, who looks really good. You know, Billy Falter, who got moved to the bullpen. Ryan Bargett, who is a great pitcher, and I think the Royals, if they can keep him, he'll turn into be only 25, but he was really good too. But then your other guys, Michael Lorenzen, who just is just, you know, it's a 5th guy. You know, you had Noah Cameron come in at the middle of the year, and you can't say enough good things about Noah Cameron. But at the end of the day, you know, like we said, baseball comes in waves and it kills you in waves. And, you know, it's just, it happens, you know, and congratulations, Carter Jansen the other night got his first hit in the majors. You know, that has to be a thrill from him playing just down the road at Park Hill. So, you know, just there's a lot of what you're seeing now from the Royals is the future. And listen, we've said that for years. You're seeing the future. But this is a hopeful future. It's not like, you know, Esteban Herman and Matt Stairs out there. Okay. It's Vinny Pasquantino. It's Bobby. It's Michael Garcia. You know, it's guys who can play baseball. So it's Kyle Isbell, you know, Jack Caglione, Carter Jansen. You have all these guys that can play. So, you know, there's a much brighter hope than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I do 100% agree with you on that. And, you know, it's just how baseball goes. Like you said, not only to mention they dropped the last game of that Twin Series. They've lost 2 out of 3 so far with the Guardians. 1 more game against them tonight. But not only have they stumbled a little bit this past week? But I mean, everybody else has been playing well. Because I mean, just on Monday when I talked about them, I recorded Monday morning that podcast, so I didn't even record it on Sunday. It was Monday morning. The Royals are 1 game out, and now all of a sudden it's 3.5. So there's more to that than just the Royals losing a couple of games. You know, it was Monday morning, and the Royals are 1-2 since Monday morning, and now they went from 1 game to 3.5 out.
Well, it's funny because the Rays came out of nowhere and got nuclear hot, and were damn near ahead of the Rangers, the Royals, and the Guardians. But they have a tough schedule, and the Rangers have the toughest schedule of anybody heading into the last part of the year. So I think that'll affect them eventually. But the Rangers at one point won like 9 in a row. So you you get hot at weird times, and the Royals had just beaten the Rangers 3 out of 4, 2 weeks ago. So it's just how baseball works. Again, the future is bright, but it's a bummer. I don't know what the future holds for Contreras. I think the Royals will keep him around. Again, obviously this is a much better product than 3 years ago. I don't think you'll see a 100-loss Royals team for some time now, but I think there was a lot of excitement from myself, excitement from a lot of people that we felt, okay, cool, back-to-back years of the playoffs, maybe something will happen, but I don't think it's anybody's fault. It's just eventually those injuries will just catch up to you.
With this being, I was just going to ask you, with this being, them being so close, and I mean, there's still a chance they make the playoffs. I mean, they're 3.5 out of the wild card right now. Obviously, it's September 10th, the night we're recording, so it's September 11th today of, talking about this. But so there's still a chance. But is this a disappointing year for the Royals? Do you chalk this up as a disappointment with them not being able to get back to the playoffs if they don't? But like you said, the injuries. So I mean, where does that weigh in, and how do you feel about that?
I think if they were fully healthy all year, this would be a major disappointment. They did not play great in June. Matter of fact, they played terrible in June. They were more healthy in June than they are now. So it is a little bit of a disappointment. But keep in mind, 2 years ago they lost over 110 games. So it's a give and take. Yes, it would have been great to see them come to the playoffs again. But, 1 year ago, that team was not expected to do much of anything. So for them to be where they're at, disappointed, yes, but is it a letdown? No. I think it is what it is, and we'll see what the next year brings and, go from there. But it looks better than it does on the other side of the state with the arch. So, I think any Royals fan will take that any day of the week. So, one more thing before we, wrap this up, and I think we ramble better than anybody on the internet. Good Lord.
Absolutely.
What was your take on, this is a bit of a wrestling take, but who doesn't love a little wrestling? What was your take on the return of AJ Lee after 10 years? That was a massive pop. And what's your take on, the character work of Becky Lynch and, this WrestlePalooza, which is something I thought WWE would never name a wrestling event, but they sure did. But it seems like a great card. But what's your take about, the Becky and AJ story and just the weekend in general, or whatever WrestlePalooza is? I think it's next weekend, but what's your take on that?
I absolutely agree with the WrestlePalooza thing. I had to clean my glasses off. I was like, what is that on the screen? Does that really say WrestlePalooza? I had to see it on the entranceway before I believed, and was like, WrestlePalooza, that's really what we're doing. Which, whatever, it's cool. Cool name, whatever they're doing their thing, man. The AJ Lee return was absolutely great. I mean, like you said, amazing pop. And I thought that everything was perfect the way they did it, honestly. I mean, and the Becky Lynch of just, I joked with Ray about this because I was like, what are we supposed to believe on, do wrestlers live in the real world, or, just because the reaction of Becky Lynch of, when CM Punk was like, well, I would never hit a lady, but lucky for me, I know someone who would. And Becky Lynch is in the ring. Like, who do you have that would hit a lady? And it's like, I mean, does she not know that he's married to AJ Lee, like the wrestler Becky Lynch? Like it's one of those things. Look, I'm all here for kayfabe. I'm all here for the silliness of wrestling. I love wrestling, but it was great. It was a great return. I thought that it was a perfect touch of Seth Rollins. I'm gonna assume he purposely fell over the barricade, to just kind of give more of a just duncy heel kind of thing. It's just like little things like that Seth Rollins does so perfectly. And I don't think that, I know he gets a lot of credit, but I don't know if he gets enough credit. He has been the workhorse of WWE over the last, 5 years or so. But I thought it was fun. I love this angle to the story. I think Triple H is doing a great job at keeping it fresh. It is still the continuation of the same feud that we saw from the very beginning, essentially. I think it got a little bit... It ran its course, with Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, CM Punk. And I don't think that it got old necessarily, but it was going to get old. It was going to get stale. Introducing this wrinkle to the story of adding Becky Lynch in there, because how much of Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch have we gotten together on air? That's like a relationship that WWE is just not exploited, which is crazy because they love exploiting relationships and putting them on camera. And so, I don't know. I love it. I love the fact that AJ Lee is back. It also makes me kind of almost want to go back and watch because, AJ Lee not taking anything from her. And this is a down period of me watching wrestling. Which we all have, we all go through our ups and downs with the product, but it just feels like she wasn't there very long, like in the initial run, but she obviously resonates with the fans on a different level, just for how much that, the people were clamoring for her to come back and how big that moment was, and in Chicago, her and Punk, and, it's going to be fun. I think they're going to put on an exciting match, and I think that it's perfect right now. The storyline they're running with this is perfect.
And I told you this, I feel like the character of Seth Rollins has been super annoying for years. Just kind of feels like it has got here, but he's really mastered that. Just annoying enough. And when AJ came out for the first time, the camera cut to him, and he was like, "That's not her. It's not her." It's just like you said. It's the over dramatization of wrestling. It's yes, we all know what reality is, but we're gonna act like we don't. And Bubba Ray has his own wrestling podcast, and it's a very good podcast. But he was saying the problem with female wrestling these days is none of them want to sell when they need to. They always want to be the baddest woman on the planet. But Becky, who probably is the best wrestler in the world, sold brilliantly for AJ. She sold the fear of, I've been fucking with this girl's husband, and here comes the lady that everyone's been scared of to come back for 10 years, and here she is. And she just sold perfectly.
Absolutely agree.
But it's just, she's a master of what she does. Final take. Do you think we see Edge and Cena one more time? He called out a spear. Obviously, Edge is in his contract with AEW, but it would just seem wrong for Edge not to have his recall match with John before he retires, I think.
Man, I cannot disagree with that. What do you think happens with that? Do you think AEW works with WWE? What is his contract, first of all? Do we know what his contract is with AEW or when it expires?
I don't know. I've heard sooner than later, but I don't know if it's before John retires or not. We've seen Lesnar, we've seen Orton, we've seen a couple of different guys from the past, but if it's not Edge Cena, then what's the point of having a Cena retirement? That's the biggest rivalry right there. So, I don't know. And hopefully they figure out something for me, like a Forbidden Door scenario, where they get a one-off, and everyone shakes hands and calls it a day, But at some point, I think Khan and, Triple H or Polovic or whoever you want to call him, figure it out. But man, everything just seems really entertaining. This last weekend we had the Chiefs game, we had a MIZZOU game, we had the just everything seems to be hitting on the right note lately.
It's a beautiful
But I
time
guess
of year.
exactly, NFL season's back, college football's back. Even if you're a local hit, high school football's back. So, a lot of different stuff to watch, a lot of fun stuff, and Publisher and I will ramble for hours on it. So, you have
It's what
four
we
things
do.
to watch. You have four things to watch for as many hours as you want. Um, I just wanted, to, before I beautifully sign off, I just wanted to congratulate you. So you got over 500. That's fantastic. I know you work super hard on this, and you get so many views on your Chiefs review, and I've known you a long time, but it's just awesome. I'm really proud of what you've done, and you're doing a great job, buddy.
Man, I really appreciate that, man. Yeah, that was I definitely didn't think I'd hit that before the regular season started, but we hit our goal. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you, EDJ. I appreciate you doing this with me too, and coming on the pod, because it is a lot more fun having somebody to bounce off of than sit here and ramble on by myself. Because I'm a rambling man over here, and I got my right hand man to ramble along with me here, so it's great. So I appreciate you, EDJ. Thank you for being on the pod, and we will talk next week and talk about a win or a loss against these Philadelphia Eagles for the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday. And I'm just going to say a win against the Ragin Cajuns for the Missouri Tigers, because there's no way they're losing that game.
Oh boy, I hope so, or else I may not see you next weekend. So, 2-0.
Appreciate you, DJ.